That was definitely a speechless performance from GunTeR. I mean, it's not every day, and I believe we can't honestly stress this enough. It is not every day you get to see Giannis gameplay like that. Most of the time, it goes the other way around, where you see the failed through space and times. They portal themselves into death. Unstable Vortex just misses everybody or goes around the target, but not the case. And Freecs, I think, not only will it either be a Giannis ban or pick, they could also choose to pick the god for themselves.
No, because yes, okay, good. That was the fastest first ban I've ever seen, and it couldn't have been any more accurate. Now Freecs have a much better chance to win. It is simply that easy. It feels like Bulldog 1-3 so far. I've got a feeling that that one win had a big part to do with GunTeR Warriors Giannis. This time they're going to have to earn it without the use of that mage in the mid lane.
Chernobog still going to be taken away, though, as an option from Freecs. Bulldog not interested in dealing with the globals from the Hunter, and certainly don't want to try and handle this Freya on the mid lane either. Giannis could have done the case, but it's time for us to see what else GunTeR Warrior is capable of. And I think Freecs are sending the same message across, because there is still a couple of globals left in the game, and Athena, arguably the best one remaining.
Agreed. I think this Athena pickup is perfect for Freecs T1. Was this picked or banned game one?
Yes.
Okay, it was.
It was definitely banned.
I was going to say, I knew there was something open that didn't get picked or banned, but Athena, wasn't sure if that was it. First pick it here is pretty good. Straight into the Poseidon. I was going to say, if I remember correctly, GunTeR likes the Poseidon after the Giannis and goes straight to it with the Terra. I think Poseidon's a little bit undervalued right now. I think he's kind of a sleeper, a really good mid laner.
Tidal Surge is certainly a great form of clear early on at level 1. I think followed up by the Whirlpool level 2. It's very easy to get lane pressure at least, but into the Discordia it could be a little bit more tricky. Both gods I think have a decent way to CC the other. Discordia getting caught in the Kerple for Poseidon, or Poseidon getting caught in the Strife Unruly Magic combination. I do think that this pick might favor a little bit more towards Freecs' mid, though, because the Soul felt like he was having some issues with a lot of those disapparates. Every time he got pressured out, it didn't really seem like he knew how to disengage. But at least with Discordia, he'll have a little bit more time to buy for himself.
I will say that Discordia, on paper, seems like a great counter matchup against Poseidon, because erratic behavior just gets you out of Kraken. But at the same time, I think that if Poseidon can force erratic behavior very early on, you kind of bluff it, you throw the Whirlpool and just kind of wait for the beads erratic behavior, it's impossible to miss the inner Kraken on the little cloud. So I think it can be very good for Poseidon, depending on how patient GunTeR Warrior is going to be in that matchup. No Erlong this time around for Arya. Good ban there from Freecs alongside the Susano, which has been a big pick on the PlayStation 4 side. Hachiman to round out the dual lane here for Bulldogs.
And Medusa to bring a little bit of that old school wombo combo into effect. The Athena Medusa can't really ever go wrong with this staple combination. It's been around, it survived so many years in Smite for a reason, because petrifying a taunt, man, you just go back to the basics at times.
You don't want to look at Medusa, and Athena taunt makes you look at Medusa. There's the end of the combo. It's pretty simple for you there. Hun Bat's the final selection. Really good control out of Bulldog's composition. I gotta say, I really like where Bulldogs went with this one, even without that Giannis pick.
I think that both sides have a decent amount of crowd control, although I would probably lean a little bit more towards Bulldogs as far as consistency is concerned. Theirs probably a little bit easier to apply over time, and meanwhile, Freecs are probably going to have to work on their execution. I think a lot of the things that went wrong in Game 1 as well for Freecs is that their execution felt a little bit sloppy at times.
Yes, I think that we're looking at Plasma in this game for Freecs T1 to see if he can turn it around. That Bakasura had a rough late game. Bakasura has rough late games, but that one was especially rough. It felt like. Make sure you get your votes in Mixer chat on if we're going to a Game 3 or if Bulldog can make Insomnia the happiest PS4 team alive.
Honestly, it was just Plasma nonstop ulting the tanks. He had like some sort of tank fetish going on where he couldn't stop attacking them.
He should play Nemesis. That way he can ult tanks all he wants.
No, then he would just ult the carries.
Oh, true. Well, Nemelt's still good against carries.
It's still good against everybody for the most part.
Yeah, it's a good ult.
But
So
that's where
I say you put Plasma on Nemesis. That's the game plan.
And then we'll have to figure out what happens in the early game later on. But
yeah,
Arya won't really have any concerns, whether it's Nemesis, Ratatoskr, or Bakasura.
Wow.
He's just doing his own thing, monkeying around.
Chat, feeling they're riding the GunTeR Warrior wave. 57% think that Freecs T1 will go down here in this game too. Gotta say, I'm excited about this one. I'm excited to see how well GunTeR Warrior can change up his play style, if he'll be able to find success on this Poseidon pick this time around. A very different style of mage than Giannis. I mean, every mage is a different style of mage, but Poseidon, area control, really a control mage at heart. Everyone thinks of the Kraken, but I've long been preaching that Poseidon is a true control mage, much like Kukulkan, and that's how you want to play him, is whirlpool placement and area denial.
Just keeping members away from objectives. I think that the rest of Bulldog's composition is very geared towards objective secure. You've got Arya with the Fear No Evil, DaveJr even with that Stingent Torment. I don't expect to see Freecs looking to confirm a Gold Fury or even a Fire Giant, possibly not even the Pyromancer, unless they have confirmed picks against Bulldog or if they know that those ultimates are unavailable.
You're right. Bulldog's got great objective zone and secure. Kraken is phenomenal. Objective secure, certainly the best in this current match. Pretty tough to outmatch it with any mage ultimate, but Golden Apple of Discord, not exactly what you're looking for there. But Freecs T1 do have good objective contest. I mean, Taunt is great. Petrify is great. Ratatosk Herald is very, very good. Discordia Strife is phenomenal. So there are tools for Freecs T1 to really go in these objectives and play aggressive around them.
Cynortas, though, definitely getting the better end of Dave this time around in the solo lane. Osiris, known for being a little bit of a lane bully, certainly exemplifying that all too well currently, and Dave won't be getting any assistance anytime soon. I don't think that Arya can really afford to make an early rotation, unlike what we saw in last game. Arya helping out his solo laner just a little bit there, but finding an opening. I am almost expecting Freecs to invade Bulldog's blue buff.
Should be. I mean, they absolutely should be. Dave was within 2 hits from the Spirit Flail or Sickle Strike. You can really get an easy kill here. If Dave's allowed to walk towards this blue, Cynortas should absolutely be chasing him down. And you know Arya's there, of course, but you're level 4 Osiris. That you've got Dave up against the ropes, and then you just kind of let him off.
It's lack of experience, I think, more than anything else. Cynortas maybe not able to understand or fully realize just how much pressure he truly has against an opponent. Some players do tend to still play a little bit more reserved when they're first introduced to competitive play, and even though we're approaching the end of the fall split here for the PS4 and SCL in general, some players, this is their first go-round at Pro Smite, and they just don't learn those things until they get a chance to watch them back later on.
Gotta learn the hard way. No way to learn those inside the classroom, basically. It's gotta actually apply it in the actual SCL games. Even scrims, I think, are very difficult to learn from a lot of the time, because unless you've got a coach who does a lot of VOD review with you, getting that extra top-down view is not always easy to get. mrsacx in some trouble here, but Wormy doesn't find or even attempt the stun follow-up. I think one of the big problems with Poseidon is Cynortas goes aggressive but has no real kill potential. I think one of the bigger problems Poseidon has had historically is that there's often not a great build path for him. He has so many items that he wants to buy. I mean, you go down the list on items that are really good on Poseidon. It's Gem of Isolation, and Shaman's Ring, and Rod of Tahuti, and Spear of the Magus, and Dave is in some trouble on this right-hand side. He's going to get knocked up. Stygian and Torment will force the beats from Plasma, but first blood goes the way of Cynortas. Good rotation over from Plasma. That is playing perfectly around your pressure. But Book of Thoth build does so much for Poseidon because one of his other great weaknesses historically has been he's super mana hungry, even through the mid-game. And Book of Thoth really takes that worry away.
I mean, just look at how low on mana GunTeR Warrior already is, and hasn't had a chance to finish off that book. Looked like he was actually trying to rush boots first. That way he could have a little bit more survivability in the mid lane, just in case Freecs decide to camp him out. But Plasma seems to have already pitched a tent over there in solo lane, and for good reason. When Cynortas has had Dave underneath that 40% health threshold for a good 5 minutes, it's only a matter of time before Plasma decides to rotate with that through the Cosmos and take advantage of the Cerberus without purification beats.
Looks like Cynortas is going to stay aggressive. Working on what could be an Unchile or a Runic Shield. I think either one would be an excellent pickup for him. This style of slightly more aggressive solo laners where they're willing to go the Runic Shields and the Void Shield instead of just immediately defaulting to Breastplate of Valor or Genji's Guard every game. I think it's a really good adjustment to extend that aggressive laning phase a little bit longer in your favor. It's
a win-win situation also for Cynortas. If he goes for the Runic Shield, that's just going to make things more complicated for Dave, since Dave opted for cooldown boots as opposed to pen boots. As well as if he goes for the Anquile, well, then Dave never gets to use Ghastly Breath ever again on the wave, and will have to rely on auto attacks or the Paralyzing Spit for full clear.
Looks like Dave might be leveling Paralyzing Spit just based on the damage it did to that wave a moment ago. It's kind of it's a personal preference thing a lot of the time, which ability you want to level, and it is Paralyzing Spit that is being prioritized. Dave might have been expecting an Unchile early on, and that way you would go away from leveling Ghastly Breath. Maybe, I don't know what the scrim culture is like on PS4, but maybe they've practiced against one another in this sort of matchup, and Dave is expecting that interrupt. And if I'm Cynortas, I think realizing that Dave is prioritizing the Paralyzing Spit, I think I'd be a little bit more tempted for Runic Shield. Plus, I think it's just a little bit better in lane because it has the health on it, whereas Unchile does not.
Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the map, Atonement and Raiden left to their own devices, but two completely different build paths as well. Fear No Evil going to come out a little bit too late here. Plasma getting the Defender of Olympus anyway from mrsacx. Arya going to get taunted back in. That's going to be the knockdown from that through the Cosmos, but it doesn't connect onto anybody. Purification beads bailing crews out.
Nice double Stygian Torment. Dave is just teleported in, so he's nice and healthy, but a perfect rotation in from Irritant. Does a little bit more than irritate the opposition. It does plenty of damage as well. Great dash from mrsacx. Just gets him out of that Kraken center damage. Still puts him low, but not out quite yet. Big brawl over this blue buff. And not only do Freecs T1 get the kill, but they get the buff as well.
And this is more to what Freecs were trying to accomplish in the last game, aggro, where they wanted to pressure out one lane specifically and then strip away the buffs, but it just never really felt like that moment ever came into play for the team, because Bulldogs were able to even up the score sooner than what Freecs were expecting. Now, though, with a slight 1,000 gold lead and mostly a little bit of an experience lead coming out of Duo, I think that Freecs are definitely right on track for where they should be currently, because Plasma on the Ratataskor is going to have an inherent advantage against Arya. Just the ability to not even need to back to base to finish off that Acorn for the same stats as Boots pretty much is always going to be a little bit more beneficial.
Dave continues to get bullied out in this lane. It was the Anchile pickup by Cynortas, and has the CDR, not particularly relevant on Osiris, I'd say. Cooldown reduction, not really necessary on him, as cooldowns are low enough to begin with, and he's trying to zone away this wave to go Dave up and allow Plasma to gank, but Dave does have a well-placed defensive ward that lets him down.
I like this, though, from Plasma. It doesn't really have a whole lot of kill potential elsewhere on the map. GunTeR Warrior, if you try to come crashing down on him through the Cosmos, you get met in the face with the Kraken. If you try to gank Raiden, unless you are incredibly precise with that through the Cosmos, chances are Raiden ends up cleansing himself with Purification Beads and then mounted archery away. Then there's nothing left to close the gap between Plasma and Raiden. So far, so good, if you ask me, with what Freecs have been able to accomplish.
Plasma hovering, doesn't find anybody with that knockup, but Kraken hits on a 3. GunTeR Warrior finds 1, 2 tossed underneath the tier 2, and GunTeR's looking for 2. Arya finds 1 for himself. GunTeR Warrior will not get it right away. What is Atonement doing here? Hello? mrsacx gets out of danger. Atonement's all the way from Duo, and that'll face GunTeR Warrior away. mrsacx somehow nearly survives, but GunTeR does end up finding another one, and now Wormy is out of danger at 1 HP. GunTeR's still lurking. I don't know what fight he's trying to take here. He finds a double kill, but will get killed quickly by Irritant. What in the world was Atonement doing between Tier 1 and Tier 2 at 10 minutes?
Looks like Atonement just got bored of staring at the face of Raiden, but because of that rotation, sure, Atonement might have found a kill, but he also got met with a death, and Arya might end up falling here as well if he's not able to dash away. No, there's no chance of escape from that overhand smash. Irritant taking a very untimely spill after just getting a huge victory by taking out GunTeR, and now he'll be forced to wait for the respawn, and GunTeR's going to be able to farm out.
Plasma looking for Arya, but jump was up and ready. Yeah, that's a crazy fight on the left-hand side, but the good news, if you're a Freecs T1 fan, the Raiden got very, very little from all of that. I mean, he gets an extra wave or two.
He's got 2 levels on
the red
him.
buff. Yeah, I guess that's more than I thought. Oh, he got both buffs. Okay, I thought that Freecs T1 may have dropped their own red. So he gets 2 extra waves and both duo lane buffs. So I'll correct myself. Raiden does a pretty good job of doing what he can there. It's difficult for you to get a Tier 1 tower that early on as a hunter from full health.
Raiden needs to force some sort of a fight, though, between himself and Atonement before Atonement has a chance to hit level 12 and get that Aegis online. He has no beats currently on this Medusa pick. And Bulldog, if they wanted a window of opportunity, this is their time to work with it.
I mean, if you the big thing about Hachiman is that a good Hachiman, if he sees you in lane and you don't have beads and you don't have Aegis, and you're playing a character like Medusa, he just rides the horse at you. And there's really not a lot that you can do in that moment. Sure, you'll throw a Petrify to immune the slow. He can turn around or pre-beads it, walk right through you, stun you with the dash. Really, as you mentioned, Raiden, if he wants this fight, can take it. But seems to be running away from Atonement. In fact, it's Atonement who ends up chasing out that mounted archery. A little weird there from Raiden.
Raiden just completely ignoring Atonement approaching him from the jungle and loses his entire health bar and chance, I think, to try and pressure out Atonement. It's odd aggro. Not really a whole lot of analysis there. It just looked like a heavy oversight from Raiden's end.
Not great. That's my analysis on that one. Plasma chased down by Arya in the mid lane. Pretty good play there from Arya, but Apple just misses. mrsacx just got solo Kraken and soloed by GunTeR Warrior. GunTeR making it work yet again on the Poseidon. 4-1-1. Been a part of 5 of Bulldog's 6 kills through the first 13 minutes. He's able to get one for himself there. Arya did have to back to base after that fight, but trading his ultimate for beads on Plasma certainly worthwhile.
Losing the Kraken, though, for the confirmed kill onto mrsacx does mean that Bulldog... Actually, no, Bulldog might still be looking at this Gold Fury. I thought that they weren't going to be interested in the slightest, but for a moment there, it looked like they were about to start pulling in. Then the reason kicks back in, and they decide not to because mrsacx has respawned with that Defender of Olympus online. So forcing a Gold Fury there might have been a little bit not recommended. This
is where Raiden can just ult at Atonement. Half HP is close enough most of the time, though mrsacx was lurking, and I believe Raiden had some ward vision there. Couple small wards that are in awkward places to Sentry. One just where mrsacx was just standing, and one on the opposite side for Freecs.
It feels like Raiden is giving too much respect to Atonement, and I feel like part of that is due to Atonement being a known name in the console scene.
I agree with you. I definitely think that's part of it. You hear it a lot from newer players, like, oh man, you know, they say that you know, it's the same and it doesn't really bother them. Plasma, blink Fear No Evil, but Fear No Evil wasn't in a great spot. Arya basically places it in the wall. It doesn't get a lot of value out of it because of it. That should have been a kill onto Plasma 10 times out of 10. But Arya's misplaced totem means that Plasma was barely in that fear at all. And Bulldog can't really pull Gold Fury knowing that Fear No Evil is down and the beads from Arya.
A little bit of a missed opportunity, but going back on that subject, though, a lot of newer players when they first come into the competitive scene can be intimidated by familiar faces, and AtonementSmite definitely one of those. Even though PS4 is a separate platform, to Xbox, which is what he used to play on, Atonement did have some pretty successful moments throughout his Xbox career, and hoping to transfer those over to the PlayStation side of things. Still, Irritant should play with a little bit more confidence here.
I totally agree with you. It's really I think that the Zapman mentality is something that I think of a lot, in that Zap doesn't care not only who you are, but how far behind he is or how far ahead you are. He's got that really aggressive mentality most of the time. At least that's what he was known for back in the day. And I think that really serves him well, as Raiden's got to use beads, can't turn around in time. Atonement dominating that lane once more. But I think that's a really good mentality to have. It's great Sacred Monkey Toss. Arya right there gets Irritant down. Irritant didn't have the Aegis up and ready, but GunTeR under some siege now with Plasma right on top of him. Dash interrupted because of the cripple, but no Kraken from GunTeR quite yet. This time might be saving it for the bigger objective.
Oh, look out for Cynortas, though. Soul Laners have decided to join the fray. DaveJr. going to spot out the rotation from this Osiris and make one of his own. Arya going to jump over the wall now, hoping to get some peel going for the rest of his team if need be, but Bulldog able to successfully push Freecs back out and away from this Gold Fury pit. I don't think that they want to start pulling the objective right away, however, understanding that certain members of Freecs are still lingering around the area, Cynortas being one of them, and probably being the primary reason why we see Bulldog giving so much respect to this objective.
Problem is, Irritant, it was a 5-on-4 power play for Bulldog, but Irritant is nearly back. At the same time, Arya's ultimate nearly back. He's got Blink up and ready for as soon as Fear No Evil is as well, so Bulldog doesn't want to let this moment go. Atonement getting very, very low. Dave gets great poke onto the enemy ADC, but in the back goes Cynortas, immediately corralled and has to use his ultimate just to get away. Stygian Torment picks up 2. Petrify doesn't do quite as much. Really good damage coming in, a huge Fear No Evil. Arya gets 1, GunTeR the other, and Arya should be A-okay. Cynortas shouldn't be able to catch up to the quick monkey as Plasma gets Kraken on the top side. 3 in a row coming from GunTeR Warrior. Bulldog now hitting double digits in the kill column, and they're looking for objective number 1.
That Fear No Evil could not have been better placed. It was the panic that immediately set in for Atonement. Nice stun as well coming out of Wormy here. That's going to confirm the Gold Fury for Bulldog, and very likely going to end up being the end of Cynortas. Also, he stuck around hoping to steal away this Gold Fury, but instead, Bulldog not only take down the entirety of Freecs, they also get the Gold Fury for free.
If you're on Freecs T1 there, do you want Cynortas there to try and steal that?
Probably not, no, because he's still sitting at half health. You cut your losses.
I agree.
After 3 members have already died from Freecs, you just accept that that objective didn't go your way. You prioritize farming and then hope that upon the next initiation, Atonement doesn't get pressured out of his beads in a spot where his only option of escape is to lacerate forward into a whirlpool from GunTeR.
I agree with you. I think that Cynortas is the guy who is still big enough to contest, even up against Raiden, who's level 16 now, even against GunTeR Warrior, who's level 15. In putting him on the bench and making it so he can't farm quite as much, I don't think it's a great idea. GunTeR doesn't have Kraken quite yet. Now he does, right on to Irritant. Aegis good enough from the Discordia, but GunTeR now has to get on the run because Plasma is trying to catch up to him. Sprint used by mrsacx, but that is one speedy boy in the mid lane, and GunTeR Warrior's out of there. Wormy gonna bring the apple straight to everybody else. Love to see it. Won't kill anybody, but that did boost Irritant's numbers by quite a bit.
Irritant probably wishing that someone from Freecs would have been able to get a little bit up close and personal. mrsacx, though, wishes that he hadn't stuck around in that mid lane. After all, gonna get solo ulted yet again. That's got to be the 3rd or 4th time now that we've actually seen mrsacx just absorb the entirety of a Kraken or a Fear No Evil.
Most of the time, I'm totally about it. I mean, that was everything I wanted to do as a mid lane player. I just wanted to kill the enemy support before they got tanky in the early game. That was always the game plan. But in that situation, I mean, Arya, you don't get anything from that. I mean, that is the definition of a kill without consequence in the mid lane, isn't it?
Not necessarily, because mrsacx still hasn't had a chance to reach level 12. That wave and the next one would have probably been enough to put him for a level 12 engagement upon his return, but now if he chooses to ult in on the Pyromancer, which Freecs, by the way, have zero interest in contesting, as you could tell from their positioning. Instead, they're going to try and spread their numbers across the map. Atonement hoping to take down a T1 in duo, possibly even the T2 if left unchecked here. And Cynortas pressing the issue at his own blue buff.
Atonement does get the tier 1. Freecs, I mean, this is the 3-1 team. They are tied for the lead. They are in contention for going to LAN. Remember, only the top seed in each region gets to go. Cynortas here to try and defend tier 1 on the right-hand side. mrsacx joins in. Hey, welcome to the fight, by the way. Easy 2 kills there for Bulldog. Plasma joins in. Might be easy 3, but GunTeR very, very low. Irritant gets him. Wormy trying to juke around for his life and is able to escape. Plasma can't. Raiden's able to find him underneath the tier 1. Atonement does get tier 2 on the left-hand side, but the rest of his team decimated on the right. And there's no way Atonement's able to get this.
He won't be able to get the Phoenix. He'll be forced to back away. Second lady spots out Wormy. But Bulldog, on the other hand, they've still got Raiden and DaveJr. working on this Fire Giant. Crew's got a little bit of a self-heal off that blue buff, and now looking to help provide some of that damage as well. Fire Giant already down 50% health, 40% health, and dropping. I don't think Atonement's going to have a chance to get in here in time. At the best case scenario, Petrify manages to bring down Arya, but even then, it's just too little too late for the Medusa.
Atonement does get some pot shots into Raiden, but too little too late indeed. Bulldog have 4 members with Fire Giant. GunTeR Warrior was about to respawn, but without a whole lot of map information, can't blame Bulldog for not holding FG.
I feel like this match just escalated so quickly, though, in Bulldog's favor, and it doesn't even feel like Bulldog really did anything outstanding or super outshining the likes of Freecs. Freecs kind of just kept running at them by themselves or in pairs in very outnumbered situations, like what we saw where they were trying to defend a T1 tower in solo lane with only 2 members available.
Yeah, Freecs T1's overall direction as a team seems to be a little bit lacking, and that's not something you expect to see from a 3-1 team. A lot of times that's the story for the 1-3 team, right? A talented squad that just doesn't quite understand where they need to be at any given time or how to play the map properly. But Bulldog haven't seemed to really worry themselves too much about the macro game, and they're just kind of waiting to watch Freecs T1 throw away a fight. And it's worked so far, because Freecs T1 has consistently thrown away fights and objectives. And this tier 2 tower defense seems a little loose to me, because here around the back comes Arya and Dave. Dave is going to serve up mrsacx. Stun isn't quite there, but Fear No Evil separates the enemy team too well for anyone to get close enough to help him. mrsacx falls. Plasma hits 4 or 5 with that knockup as the Golden Apple of Discord does good damage to Dave. GunTeR Warrior falls to Cynortas. Bulldog lose their mid laner before Kraken gets off. And that is a big win for Freecs.
Bulldog forgetting that there's still a T2 tower left standing that they needed to be attacking, while their front line had the entirety of Freecs distracted. Instead, now Bulldog on the retreat, trying to get a little bit of sustain out of this Terra, but nice job from Atonement to recognize Dave on the lazy back.
Plasma should be able to clean it up because of Atonement's damage. Indeed he does. Now Raiden looks next to fall. Atonement actually gets credit for that one himself. Bulldog, I mean, it's Smite 101, Taco. Don't backpedal. Turn and run. If you're going to run, run. And Bulldog not only backpedal, but then Dave tries to stick a back right in front of everybody.
Personally, Aggro, if you're trying to disengage as slowly as possible, you backpedal.
Oh, right.
And I think Bulldog, the main issue there is that it looked like it was conflicting shot calls from the team, where maybe some of their members still left standing were like, oh, we could fight this, let's just turn and burn them. And then others were more interested in trying to get some backs off. Dave being a primary example of that.
I think Dave was shopping. I mean, you can't shop there, dude. The entire enemy team's looking at you. Again, a problem certainly that GunTeR fell before he got his ultimate off. Arya falls before Irritant could do anything at all. He's able to blink in and get an easy Fear No Evil kill. Here comes Kraken on a Cynortas. He's knocked up and brought down. It's a double for Arya. 9, 1, and 5 for the Jungle Monkey. And Bulldog, they lose a tier 1 because of that, but ultimately getting the solo and enemy mid means that wasn't so bad after all.
I just want Raiden to focus a little bit better on bringing down these structures before participating in the fights. He keeps getting too distracted by seeing his teammates going in aggressively that he thinks he needs to be auto-attacking those same targets too, and that's simply not the case. As the Hunter, during the sieging stage, during those sieging moments with the Fire Giant early on, your primary duty is to focus on the towers and the towers alone. It does not matter what happens to your team in the process. As long as you take down the objective, that is what will careen your team into a victory.
They finally get one objective in the mid lane. That's the tier 2 tower. Bulldog now up about 5,000 gold. Fire Giant's coming up in about 40 seconds. And with Bulldog's lead, you imagine that Freecs T1 have a choice to make if it's even worth trying to defend FG. I would be on the side of defending here if I'm Freecs T1. I mean, yes, you're down 5k, but your jungle fight is pretty good. Petrify's excellent in jungle corridors. Cynortas might be able to isolate someone a little bit more easily outside of the lane. And of course, Plasma's ultimate very disruptive in that environment as well. I think it'd be a little bit better to go. How did Bulldog get... What? Was that a... How? Arya's Sacred Monkey, I guess, did it. No, it must have been Sacred Monkey Toss, but I thought he hit it right away. Someone body blocked it and made the monkey actually delay, and that's what ends up stealing it. Okay. Sometimes it's just not your day. And if that happens to me and I'm on Freecs T1, I go, okay, we're destined to lose.
Could be worse. Could be watching a Sun Wukong, Jingu Bang, 3 Fire Giants in a row, back to back to back.
I certainly hope no one would have to see that. Fire Giant getting low. Up goes the rat, but Fire is already down. Arya getting low, but he turns around and gets the finishing blow onto Atonement, and the apple just short. Shells there as well. Arya should be safe as Cynortas can't quite get there to try and finish him off. Strife doesn't do a whole lot from Irritant, and Bulldog get away nearly scot-free.
Clenching. That is a cheeks clenching moment for sure for Arya, because had that Discordia Golden Apple gone any further than its limited range, we see a dead monkey every single time there.
No, I mean, Arya knew how long that
calculated?
Yeah, of course. Okay, if I just run here, that apple should fade away right around there, so I'm good. That was we actually got the audio clip.
Was he any further out with just a straight line evade?
I think it hits him if he goes straight line.
It was a really awkward bounce off that.
Those curved walls, yeah, curved walls usually.
Oh, it's so hard
to
tell which way it's going to go sometimes.
I've
seen them go backwards, forwards, side to side. It's just all up to how the apple's feeling that day.
You really do need your protractor available to calculate exactly where those bounces are going to go around the Fire Giant.
Yeah, I think the only one where it's like very predictable is probably the Nene Kappa for Kuzumbo.
Well, that's because the Nene has a mind of its own. I mean, that's a living being. So you go, hey Bill, the one that Kuzumbo's holding in this example's name is Bill. Like, hey Bill, go kill Hindu Man underneath the tier 2 tower off this triple bounce. Yeet! And then you throw it out and then it kills him.
And Hindu, I've actually seen Hindu die like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Didn't that happen in the pros?
It did.
Match?
Captain Twig. Captain Twig was the one whispering sweet nothings to Bill as he tossed him underneath the tier 2. Shouts to Bill.
Good times, and talking about a good time, Bulldog about to have a real good time if they line up their abilities properly with this left side Phoenix Siege. And again, I want to pay specific note towards Raiden on this siege, because I thought maybe it was just a game 1 circumstance of Raiden trying to follow the team shot calls, but he is time and time again looked at poking out members as opposed to the Phoenixes.
Taunt on a 2 frontliners. Cynortas already getting low as Arya blinks into the back and doesn't get a whole lot for that Fear No Evil. Plasma gets a pretty good ultimate off though, knocking up a couple as GunTeR Warrior holds on to the Kraken until he decides it's hungry and it's lunchtime. Cynortas is the main course. Snacks has to go in, but doesn't find a whole lot off that taunt. Again, the left Phoenix, pristine, nearly. But now it's a 5-on-4. Arya goes forward. Big damage onto Irritant, but a little bit early on that overhand smash. Gets Irritant out of the potentially fatal damage. Left side Phoenix does ultimately fall. I'm with you now, Taco. Nothing triggers me more. Like, I'm a mage. I shouldn't be hitting Phoenix. Let me take the care of the players. Hit the structure. That drives me insane. I'm tilted.
It's driving me insane.
I know.
And I'm a Hunter player, but I don't know, man. Sometimes...
Here's the deal. If you're a Hunter in a late game situation, you better be insta-killing the person you're hitting if you're not on Phoenix. But Geb. Phoenix is the call here, this time down the mid lane. Dave isolating mrsacx, and Arya 11 in a row for the jungler, for the Bulldogs. Raiden and GunTeR very low on the backside, but no one can get there because they get mid Phoenix. Cynortas up downs, again, solo laner, that's what they do. And now he's in some trouble though, because the rest of the team putting in some solid damage. Apple comes through and hits onto Dave. Dave won't spread it, but won't fall either. Cynortas trying to remedy that. Atonement, bye-bye now. Nice crack coming out of GunTeR. Raiden able to get Cynortas as well. Plasma's up in the air, but doesn't land onto anybody. Now it's Plasma, the last one left standing. Freecs are going to get upset by the Bulldogs. 1 in 3, no longer.
There was just no chance for Atonement. Starts turning the corner, realizes he's going to get Kraken, tries to get the Petrify off in time, but it's just to no avail. Plasma's left standing, but the Titan has fallen, and Bulldogs, just like that, are going to bring this one home. Insomnia could not be happier right now.
That is a tough loss for Freecs T1. What a performance, though, from the mid-jungle. GunTeR Warrior, obviously the king in Game 1. That second game, 20 out of the 25 kills were accounted for by GunTeR Warrior and Arya Cruz. That's incredible dominance from those two in particular. That Hunbat's play was very, very good.
Excellent comeback as well from Arya, considering how rough the early game was going for them at the start. A lot of ganks. It felt a lot, though, like they put so much emphasis, they being Atonement and everyone else from their team, they were trying to collapse onto Bulldogs' blue buff for so long, but they just couldn't find it after time and time again. And Plasma as well, despite getting off to a great start there, kind of struggled to keep that lead relevant throughout the mid and late game.
Who was your MVP? I imagine it's either going to be GunTeR or Arya. Again, 20 of the 25 between those two. I do think that 10-minute rotation all the way, not just to solo lane, but the enemy blue buff of solo lane, not even there. It was between their tier 1 and tier 2 tower that Atonement goes. 10 minutes in, that puts him at a 2-level deficit, and then he was still dominating his lane. Imagine if he would have stayed put, and maybe could have gotten some solo kills onto Raiden instead of giving him a big lead. I
think that was part of the problem, though, is that Atonement felt like he was more needed with the rest of the Freecs squad on the opposite side of the map to try and capitalize on kills, because the thought process might have been, if we bully them out hard enough over here, then we'll be able to transition that across all parts of the map. But that never really came to play, because once Atonement goes back over, he's bullying Raiden, sure, but Raiden's sole purpose in life for Bulldog was to attack structures and maybe follow up with the mounted archery when needed. But I just never really saw him getting pressured out much more after the laning phase dissipated.
It's true, we had a pretty free laning phase after that, but Arya Cruz is your MVP for Game 2 and well-earned 12-1 for the jungler for Bulldogs. Also threw in a Pyromancer steal in the midst of all that. The Sacred Monkey tosses were big basically all game long. Irritant falls here and fell often in this game to the damage from this Hunbats.
And even when Arya wasn't able to find kills immediately off of that Fear No Evil, it didn't matter that much because he was still forcing out actives consistently. That's what really opened up all these Krakens that we got a chance to see from GunTeR Warrior. I think a large part of this Poseidon's success came right off the bat of these Hunbat's ultimates.
It was actually Plasma stepped in front of that Sacred Monkey toss, and that made it hit Plasma, another player, and then the Pyromancer, which steals it. No good deed goes unpunished there. To be fair, I would have been very angry with Plasma for not body blocking that Sacred Monkey toss. He does the right thing, but again, it just seemed like it wasn't quite Freecs T1 day, and that's a big loss for them. Now Insomnia potentially in control of that region, but it's time to see what's going on the North American side of things. Is in control is, again, I've made this pun already, in control of that region. It's only the top one. We'll see what happens in our final set of the day. We'll go to a quick break, but we'll be right back to close out the SCL.